Yeah, it wouldn't let me do seconds. We're gonna start now. Hello! Welcome to an adventure. I apologize for the slight technical difficulties at the start of the stream. I don't know what happened. I mean, I do sort of, but I don't. But it is solved now, and it'll continue to be an adventure in technology, in having the stream go to both channels, because roughly, I don't know, February, March-ish, I have to figure out how to do it from one computer instead of two. So it'll be fun. Yes, the internet is haunted. I think I may have figured out a way to do it from one computer. The hard part is captions. But I think anyway. Also, Key Squared, thank you for the resubscription. 48 months. Oh boy. Yeah, hi, welcome everybody. You'll note we have not yet encountered any gelatinized savory dishes today because we haven't looked at anything archival. Also, I don't have the O counter up yet, but we're not looking at that document today, so let's segue into, hi, this is Archival Adventures. I'm Rogan27, aka Anthony Wright de Hernandez, Community Collections Archivist at Virginia Tech, and this is the roughly weekly show where we explore items from special collections and university archives and learn about them together. And I run everything by myself. So, well, I do have some assistance in the form of a student assistant that does help plan the episodes, but all the technical back end is me. So when things break, it's me. Anyway, we're going to be looking at historical documents that are owned by the institution that I work at. And because of that, we just like to make a nod toward the history of the institution and acknowledge that Virginia Tech acknowledges that we live and work on the Tutelo and Monacan people's homeland, and we recognize their continued relationships with their lands and waterways. We further acknowledge that the Morrill Land Grant College Act of 1862 enabled the Commonwealth of Virginia to finance and found Virginia Tech through the forced removal of native nations from their lands in California and other areas in the West. Virginia Tech acknowledges that its Blacksburg campus sits partly on land that was previously the site of the Smithfield and Solitude plantations owned by members of the Preston family. Between the 1770s and the 1860s, the Prestons and other local white families that owned parcels of what became Virginia Tech also owned hundreds of enslaved people. Enslaved black people generated resources that financed Virginia Tech's predecessor institution, the Preston and Olin Institute, and they also worked on the construction of its building. But today, we're not going to the 1860s. Today, we're blasting off to the 1960s. And yes, I was busy fixing other things. So let me now fix the fact that you can't see that. Oh, Shadows, thank you so much for the bit. Stay safe on the road. And Hannah, thanks for dropping the commands in the chat there. Indeed, today we are returning for our third visit to the James Dean collection. This James Dean happens to have been the a key player in the founding of the NASA art program. He was the NASA director of films, publications, and television, and then he was the founding director of the fine arts program at NASA. And then later, he was the curator of art at the National Air and Space Museum. And you'll see, I have now updated the finding aid, and it correctly reflects that he did pass away in 2024. It was important to get that updated because under conditions governing reproduction and use, there used to be a condition, which was that if you wanted to use any of the materials in a public publication, which this stream technically would fall under that, that during his lifetime you had to ask him first. We did not run afoul of that. It's just that we had not updated the finding aid yet to indicate that he had passed, which means that that restriction is no longer relevant because it was only there until he died. But yes, so we have been looking at the NASA manned space program missions through the materials of NASA's art director. We started with Project Mercury, then we did Project Gemini, and today we're heading to the moon with Project Apollo. I do plan to also continue on after today. It will probably be one, maybe two more episodes with this collection. I think Skylab and the space station are probably going to combine into one, but I want to take a look and see if there's enough content. This Planets and the Sun, I'm assuming, has something to do with his work as art director, and so it's probably something to do with like NASA art about planets and the sun, and if so, that seems like it would be interesting and that we should look at it. But I will look at that and make a decision later. As with any time I have a finding aid, you're welcome to request to see specific things. The things that I physically have available at the moment are the items in Series 3. So any of these folders listed under Series 3 I have. And so if you want to see one, let me know. Oh, geez. Geek Filter, welcome back. You were randomly selected as a VIP for the stream, so enjoy the digital diamond and the ability to award pun points. And we're going to get started now that, you know, it's significantly delayed. Thank you, technical difficulties. This will not be a comprehensive look at the Apollo project. This will not even be a comprehensive look at what we have regarding the Apollo project. And I do have plans. We looked at Michael Collins's stuff the day he died, and we've never returned to it. And we have a lot of stuff in the Michael Collins collection. Michael Collins was the third of 3 on the Apollo 11 mission. Everybody knows Armstrong and Aldrin. Collins stayed in the lunar orbiter. And we have his papers. We're going to revisit those. I've also been digging in. I think I found like some personal journals and things like that from various NASA scientists that we might take a gander at. Anyway, we're starting now with box 2, folder 24, which is charts and diagrams of the Apollo module and missions. So, as always, I don't really know what's in this collection. Part of the reason that I have a student assistant helping to prep the episodes is so that, unless it's one I'm already really familiar with, I don't spend a lot of time looking through it before we're live, so we can sort of discover things together. Okay, what do we have here? It looks like a diagram of spacesuit. Presumably the Apollo mission spacesuit. Although it doesn't seem to have like a title on it anywhere. But clearly it is spacesuit. Loop tape? That is confidence inspiring. Shoulder disconnect access, sunglasses pocket, snap assembly, pen light pocket, utility pocket, wrist clamps, assist straps, urine transfer connector, and biomedical injection flap. Lunar module restraint access flap, lunar module restraint access, entrance slide fastener flap, slide fastener, boot, loop tape. Okay, I'm curious about this loop tape now. Is it just like... Because where it's indicating seems odd, but I know they looped tape around spots so that they could tear off a piece of tape if they needed to cover a hole. I know that was a thing, but it's indicating like loop tape up here at the neck joint, loop tape down here at the toe, loop tape in the center of the back. That just doesn't seem quite... Oh! Key squared, you're probably right. It probably is Velcro. Because Velcro was invented for the space program. So they're probably just calling it loop tape because it had not been branded as Velcro. Excellent. So you can stick things to your suit. Well, it's so you can stick the pieces of your suit together, hopefully. Okay, we've got some... Oh gosh, you know what? That whole diagram is an actual official NASA photograph and has information on the back. It's from September 2, 1968. It will not be super clear for you all because no matter how much I play with the focus, it does not like mimeographed copies. Cameras don't like mimeographs. I can try, and I will try, but it doesn't like it. Come on. Come on. You can do it. You can do it. Just hold your focus for a moment. Yep. Okay. I have frozen it now. Velcro was invented in 1955 by Swiss engineer Georges de Mestral. That's what they need the character... the character in Carbon Creek, the Enterprise episode where the Vulcans invented Velcro. That's what they named him. Oh dear. He was inspired by birds that stuck to his and his dog's clothing. Yes. Like, it's a... The creation of Velcro is honestly an amazing advance in technology. Okay, I'm going to read this. I'm sorry, it is very blurry on screen and I cannot clear it up. It is slightly easier to see in person, but not hugely. Integrated thermal Meteoroid garment. integrated thermal meteoroid garment. The integrated thermal meteoroid garment is a many-layered structure laced to the torso limb suit. It is composed of an inner and outer shell of beta cloth, 7 layers of aluminized Kapton film separated by 6 layers of beta marquisette. I'm actually going to give you all back the picture to look at while I read, because why have you look at blurry text? Because we have the technology that I can put the picture on screen, freeze that image, and read to you much more comfortably this way. Probably, Neoguts. Okay. 7 layers of aluminized Kapton film separated by 6 layers of beta marquisette, and a liner of 2 layers of neoprene-coated nylon ripstop. A layer of Chromel R, a woven metal, is added to the knee, elbow, and shoulders to protect the suit against abrasion. The boot is attached to the spacesuit boot by loop tape, which we have determined is Velcro. Covers are provided for the shoulder cable disconnect, lunar module restraints, the entrance slide, and the urine transfer fitting -- medical injection area. The cover for the last named has 4 snaps at the top and folds down. The inner side has pockets for a radiation dosimeter and for a lanyard. Pockets include one on the upper left arm for 2 pens and a pen light, one on the upper right arm for sunglasses, and one on the upper right thigh, a utility pocket about 1 3/4 by 6 by 8 1/4 inches. In addition, there are strap-on pockets for both legs. These contain a data list, left leg, and checklist and scissors, right leg. Scissors seem dangerous in space. Equipment for the National Aeronautics and Space Administration's manned Apollo lunar programs. I did not know that the hard outer space suit was called Integrated Thermal Meteoroid Garment. Geek filter. The autocorrect is very funny on that one. So that would be for protecting the astronaut from impact of micrometeorites. But yes, micrometeorites, yes. They let them run around on the moon with scissors. Exactly. Okay, let's take a look at some additional items, because boy have I delays today. My apologies. Okay, we have a lovely photo spread here on Apollo 9. I'm just gonna freeze this so I can read to you the caption. The greatest danger to the space program: digital rights management on the soundtrack clips. Micro media rights. Apollo 9, 10th day. As the Apollo 9 astronauts complete their 150th revolution of the Earth, the crew-carrying command module will separate from the service module and dip into the atmosphere at 400,000 feet. After a fiery re-entry, they will splash down 1,290 nautical miles due east of Cape Kennedy. Helicopters will carry them to the deck of the USS Guadalcanal, from which they will be airlifted next day to Norfolk, Virginia, and thence home to Houston, Texas for post-flight debriefing. And so you get to see some of the result of James Dean's work here, because all of these diagrams, all of these illustrations, those are under his direction as director of the art program. So you've got the command module and service module separation. You've got the re-entry depicted. You wouldn't be able to see the module with the plasma around it if you were actually looking at it IRL. And then there's the Atlantic splashdown with the helicopters arriving. It's very effective illustration, I must say. Stepped away from your computer for a minute. All I heard was strap on. It's not quite that kind of live stream. Yes, NeoGets. They did have to do paperwork for immigration services when they returned to the US from space. That is a thing that happened. And yet, they were outside the US and returning. So technically, they were supposed to do the paperwork. It's just a tiny little detail that people are like, really? Really? But the people responsible for that paperwork were probably like, yeah, my records are incomplete without it. Sadly, I have been in positions that required paperwork in ridiculous situations. There was also something about getting charged for mileage, which was more of a joke. Okay, we have an illustration here of launch day for the Apollo 9. I feel like I need to look up the history of Apollo 9. Oh my gosh, I don't know that I will be able to read this. Launch day. In the busy Apollo 9 flight, astronauts McDevitt, Scott, and Schweikert will put America's moon landing craft, the four-legged Lunar module, through its first test in space with men aboard. Following liftoff from NASA Kennedy Space Center, the complete spacecraft will be fired into Earth orbit attached to the third stage S4B, the Saturn V launch vehicle. The command and service modules will separate from S4B, and the panels that have protected the lunar module during launch will be cast off. The command/service modules then will turn end for end, dock with the lunar module, and pull the lunar module away from the rocket. The service module's main engine will be fired for the first time to raise and stabilize the orbit of the docked spacecraft and take it a safe distance from the rocket. Air Force Colonel James A. McDevitt is Apollo 9 commander. Air Force Colonel David R. Scott is command module pilot, and Russell L. Schweikert, a civilian, is lunar module pilot. Honestly, I did not realize that there were any civilians that were astronauts in the Apollo program. I honestly thought they were all military. So if nothing else, I learned that. um. Okay, let's see. Okay, this one's going to be a diagram of flight stations on the interior, which we can definitely examine. Just going to tilt it so you don't get the glare, and then I will pause it and read to you. This one okay, I just need to, I just want to show you the difference in the quality of the mimeographing between these two photographs. This is the one I just read you, and I could barely see it live. This is the one I'm about to read, which, like, clearly the mimeograph was running out of ink when they did this copy, and this one was fresh. If nothing else, Armstrong technically retired from the military before he flew in space. Sort of a borderline case, yeah. No, I just didn't know they had civilian pilots as part of the Apollo program. I knew they had very specific requirements, but I thought that they had recruited strictly from within the military. And I know for Mercury and Gemini, or at least for Mercury, it was all military. But I guess by the time they got to Apollo, they had expanded the pool of available candidates. So knew that there were civilians in the Skylab program, which is technically Apollo. I don't know if Skylab is Apollo. Is it? We have material on Skylab, it's just not on my desk right now. It's planned for the next time we visit this collection. But I don't know a ton about Skylab, personally. Honestly, my fascination with and appreciation of NASA and spaceflight in general started with the Space Shuttle Challenger. According to the interwebs, while Skylab utilized some Apollo hardware and technology, it was a separate project. Yeah, that's what I thought. Because the Apollo missions, like, they continued, and after 11 made it to the moon. And then after 11, they continued going to the moon and doing science. But then eventually funding missions to the moon became challenging because people weren't interested anymore. Like, the public wasn't tuning in the way that they had in the beginning, and we had won the race, and so the funding dried up, and they actually canceled some of the latter missions. Off the top of my head, and I'll double check, I think, wasn't 17? Didn't they get to 17? But then, like, there were supposed to be more. Yeah, Apollo 17 was the final flight of the Apollo program. Which is why you have a sci-fi movie titled Apollo 18. Because it's a monster disaster movie where Apollo 18 was covered up because all the astronauts got killed by aliens on the moon. But in reality, the Apollo missions just got canceled after Apollo 17 because of funding and interest, and they were putting the funding they did have in other directions. I'm trying to pull up. Yeah. Huh. Yeah, they don't even go into details beyond 17 on here. But I know it was planned. I thought that it was planned further than that, and there were just some that were canceled, but I don't know. I suppose we can try and find out. If anybody wants to look it up and let me know, that'd be great. But I was just skimming through the wiki, and it doesn't talk about any planned missions beyond 17. So, okay, so this is from 1969. Inside the lunar module, the diagram shows how the Apollo 9 astronauts will work, live, and sleep inside the craft that will take them down to the moon. Panel 1 shows astronaut looking through telescope. I can zoom in on that. The problem is that I forgot that, yes, I can zoom in on that, but that means I have to. Okay. We'll get it. Yes. Astronaut looking through a telescope. Okay, then number 2 shows both astronauts standing at flight station. Okay. It says both because while they were missions that were staffed with 3 people, only 2 of them were intended to occupy the lunar module. And I say that because Apollo 11, all 3 of them had to get into the lunar module. Number 3 is a side view of an astronaut at his flight station. So that's right above my head here. Number 4. We'll get a couple of these on screen, but they're bigger this way, and so, okay. Number 4, command pilot looking upwards through the docking window. 5 shows how one astronaut will sleep on the floor while the other rests during their stay on the moon. 6 shows astronaut charging his portable life support system. I want to know more about this portable life support system. And 7, based on the caption, is clearly an astronaut donning a space station. It shows an astronaut donning special suit and equipment needed for protection during the planned 3 walks on the moon, hopefully this July. This was well before there were plans for a space station. The caption seemed humorous. Astronaut donning station. As if an astronaut were putting on a space station as an article of clothing. Okay, I'm gonna glance ahead and see, because we've got plenty more illustrations like this in here, which are great and definitely the product of the person whose papers these are and his art program that he created, but they're also not terribly rare. They're easily findable many, many places. Ooh. What I want to find is more interesting and unique stuff that we might not have seen before. That said, not everybody's seen any of these before. You know, I could do this and you all could see what I was flipping through, and that would be a possible thing as well. I can do that in a second. Okay, let's see here. I'm going to quickly glance. Apollo command module. Images taken on the moon, comma, diagrams. Saturn rocket diagrams and images. Photos of the Apollo 11 crew. Apollo 11 training photos. All of this sounds great, right? Apollo 11 notes. Oh, that's... So far, I haven't decided what to show yet. So that's why... Okay, let's see here. We've got... I know there's a couple in here. The Ranger spacecraft. Apollo diagrams and photos. Dean illustrations. Apollo-Soyuz test project. Chart of Apollo landing flight techniques. Dean illustrations. Those sound much more interesting to me. Also, let's see, handwritten notes. Eyewitnesses to Apollo 11. Notes. I knew I had seen that listed. And that sounds interesting to me as well. Like, we could look at these, which are the professional, like, photographs and illustrations explaining the program in the 60s, but I'm more interested in, what the heck is the Ranger spacecraft? I don't know of a spacecraft that was called Ranger. I feel like I know a lot about the Apollo program, but I am not familiar with the Ranger spacecraft. Therefore, I want to look at this and learn. All right, I'm going to pause this. And holy moly. This is really hard to read. Okay, I have to show you. This is the text I was attempting to make out. And I am certainly not able to read it. I have one more thing I will attempt to see if I can read it, but otherwise we'll move on and read the text on another one. I'm gonna try and see if I can do some image manipulation on a photograph from my phone to try and make out this text, because boy, right now it is virtually impossible to read anything. Okay. Alright, I want to adjust Yeah. Slightly better. I think we're being attacked by an ad break right now, so me adjusting filters and things is okay. Highlights. Yeah. Oh, yeah, that makes it a little easier. Shadows. Yeah, give me that contrast, please. Brightness. Nope. Pull that down. Black point. Take out some saturation. I may have actually gotten this. We'll see. If I can zoom in, I might actually be able to make out some of this text. Okay. It's still not great, but the National Aeronautics and Space Agency prepares 2 spacecraft for launch. Yeah, I still can't really make out enough of it. It would be possible to clean it up, but it's just really impossible to make out the text without serious image manipulation to clean it up. So we have Ranger spacecraft, Omni antenna, TV subsystem, and shroud. Camera. Oh! Is this because they wanted... Oh, Geek Filter, the text on the back of this is just so faint that I can't make it out. I think this spaceship it's just a TV camera. Feel free to share, because the text isn't super long, but the only thing I can really make out is that it is February 4, 1965. And the photo number is 65 dash 1-100. Rangers C and D, I think. I'm not certain though. Let me see. I shall copy. Come on. See, I tried just taking a photo of it with my camera and manipulating the photo, which did not Oh, so this is... It's not the same, but at least it'll tell us some stuff. Because what I have is like the official photo and the like press release caption on the back. What you have is what you found is page 9 of NASA Facts, volume 2, number 6, which talks about this spacecraft. The Ranger bus. The Ranger bus is the basic vehicle to which the experiments, in this case the television system, are attached. It contains Ranger's principal power supply, telemetry instruments to report on the spacecraft's condition and operation, a command system to enable personnel on Earth to control the craft, timing, orientation, and temperature control devices, and a small rocket system for in-flight correction, if required, of Ranger's course. Ranger is also equipped with an omnidirectional antenna which disseminates radio signals in all directions. Although the signals from the omnidirectional are far weaker than those from the high-gain antenna, they serve as a communications link when the high-gain antenna is not pointed to Earth, as during launch and mid-course correction. See From the Earth to the Moon below. The omnidirectional antenna also functions at all times to receive commands from Earth to the spacecraft. During Ranger's flight, 2 solar panels extended from it like butterfly wings. The panels hold a total of 9,792 solar cells. These photoelectric devices convert sunlight into 200 watts of electricity for powering spacecraft equipment. Auxiliary power is furnished by 2 silver zinc storage batteries, which are used when the solar panels are not functioning, particularly during launch, when they are still folded, and during mid-course correction. During its flight, Ranger must be positioned so that its solar panels face the sun for power, and its high-gain antenna points to Earth. A complex system of sun and Earth sensors, gyroscopes, and nitrogen gas jets keep the craft oriented. Oh, thank you. Oh gosh, the Ranger 7 mission? So it doesn't quite have... Like, that's the mission report. That's... Oh, there's the image included in there, but it doesn't have the caption on the back of it. It's fine. We got... Yeah, that's... I'm not going to read it because... because it's not in the collection of documents that I have, but we have the link in chat and people are free to visit it. Hi, Bast Insider. But yeah, that is like a full-on mission report for the Ranger 7 mission. And Ranger was apparently part of the Apollo program. Surveyor spacecraft landed mode. Lunar orbiter spacecraft. Okay, I'm curious about... These are in the folder marked Ranger, but they don't say Ranger, so now I want to know more. Okay. Surveyor 7. Drawing shows configuration of Surveyor 7 after its soft landing on the moon. The alpha scattering instrument is in its stowed position while the surface sampler is seen extended to the surface. Surveyor 7 was launched from the Kennedy Space Center January 7th, 1968, and was landed in the moon's crater Tycho 2 days later. Okay, so these were pre-human. Oh no, Geek Filter, it's not at all annoying. These were, I believe, the unmanned missions that scouted the moon, and like the one that we looked at, the Ranger spacecraft that had the television camera in it. It was modular, so you could put different payloads on it. and the Ranger 7 mission, the one that you linked the report to, was for practicing parking orbit, which is really interesting. That's Insider. Yes, I encourage scone. Let's see, drawing of the NASA Lunar Orbiter spacecraft. The camera-carrying spacecraft's mission is to orbit the moon and take sharp, close-up photos of the lunar surface. Space researchers will use the photos to help select landing places for Project Apollo astronauts. So yeah, these spacecraft were used to prepare for the manned missions. And it makes total sense, and I've never once thought about the missions that were, oh gosh, we're being raided. Hello, Newbie Muffin. Welcome in. Thank you for joining. Welcome to an adventure. I am Rogan27, aka Anthony Wright Day Hernandez. I'm the Community Collections Archivist at Virginia Tech, and this is a show where we explore things from the archives, and we learn together. So today we're looking at material from the James Dean collection. James Dean was the creator of the NASA art program and the director of art for NASA during the beginning of NASA. And so we're looking at Project Apollo stuff from his collection. Luke XY, welcome in. Muttertoad, hello. Jaro, hello. Maya Beep Boop, hello. Welcome, everybody. It's great to have you joining. What were you all up to today? Indeed, actually, so James Dean was instrumental in creating the NASA art program, and then was director of the NASA art program for a couple of decades before going on to be the head of art at... Sorry, I just got distracted by things on the screen while trying to remember words that I can just bring up on a screen. He 1961 to 1974, he was the founding director of the Fine Arts program at NASA. So in charge of like all the people that were doing the illustrations of what the spacecraft would look like. They did technical drawings, they did the illustrations to communicate the space program to the public. They did all of the artists' renditions of like what the surface of a planet might look like, or illustrations of the solar system or things like that. Those are all part of the NASA art program. And so he created that program and was director of it from 61 to 74. And then after that, he was curator of art at the National Air and Space Museum. You're not sure what you did? That's okay, Newbie Muffin. National Agency of Space Art. Oh, I love that. Yeah, like the NASA art program is huge. NASA would not have been as effective or successful. Oh, thank you, whoever gifted the sub to Newbie Muffin. The art program was instrumental to first communicating the space race to the public, because manned space flight and then the mission to the moon, the US started out behind. Russia got there first on a lot of the major milestones. And so while Russia was really secretive about their program, the US decided to basically put out press releases and share with the public what was going on. to help drive excitement about it and help like rally the national cause towards working toward it. And then once Apollo 11 happened, they made it to the moon. The live television coverage was less like fell off after that. But then they went into the space shuttle, they did Skylab, they did the International Space Station, and all of those involved television coverage and documentaries and illustrations of what is this going to look like. We did an episode a couple of years ago where we looked at material. I tried to find stuff on the Hubble telescope. We ended up looking more at the illustrations and design communication documents related to some other telescope projects that were related to Hubble, because that happened to be what was in there. We do a wide variety of stuff. So the archives here at Virginia Tech have a couple different focuses. We have stuff on the American Civil War. We have history of science and technology, history of food and drink, history of the American cocktail, which we haven't actually done a ton of on stream, university history, which we occasionally dip into, but it's not a big part of what we do on stream. And then history of women and the built environment, which is mostly the International Archive of Women in Architecture. And so I try to include stuff from all of our big collecting areas as much as I can. But yeah, we do a lot of science stuff and a lot of sci-fi, and because we have a pulp sci-fi collection, we're actually reading through some stories from from a 1934 pulp magazine. But we do. I enjoy doing the NASA stuff, so we do a lot of space stuff when I get the chance. We did a whole series on like nuclear power. What did I call it? Because it wasn't just nuclear. I don't remember off the top of my head, but we did a whole series on it included nuclear. It included like the Rochester Conference and a lot of the big names from the development of the Manhattan Project and stuff like that. Why can't I think about... I'm looking now because I have records. I just can't remember what I called the series. The High Energy Physics series. Because I ran across stuff and discovered that we had a bunch of material on high energy physics. And I was like, okay, let's spend some time looking at that stuff. So right now I have two sort of ongoing series. One, we just finished reading a journal written by the chief engineer of the USS Dakota in the American Civil War. And that was really fun. So we started another journal that gives a different perspective on the war. This one is written by a 14-year-old girl from a plantation in Mississippi. And we've we did that last week, and it was the first time we looked at that journal. And I plan to do more journals. We have some like personal journals and diaries from some people at NASA as well. I have yet to pull them out and see if they are interesting. but yeah, like we wanted to see if we could find another perspective, and other than trying to get a different look, the only criteria was, could I read the handwriting? But yeah, because I sight read all of it. Like, we're looking at the journal, and I haven't pre-read it. And we run across something and we don't know what it is. We try to look it up online and see what we can learn. So that's what we're doing. But yeah, welcome in, everybody. So the image on screen right now, this is from 1964, January 26th. Model of the Ranger A spacecraft. The objective of the Ranger A mission is to obtain photographs of the lunar surface. 6 TV Vidicon cameras, 2 wide angle and 4 narrow angle, will begin taking photographs 10 minutes prior to impact and will send the video signals to tracking stations for recording on magnetic tape and reconversion to image on film. The first pictures will be taken 1,000 miles from the lunar surface. The last photographs could be taken as close as 1/3 of a mile from the moon. Ideally, some 1,000 photographs could be reproduced by the 6 cameras. I find it interesting that the plan for this spacecraft is, let's mount cameras to it, have them transmit their images to us while it crashes into the moon. Yes, apparently. 6 TV Vidicon cameras. Take photographs, and the photographs are transmitted as video signals. And from that, then they bring it back to the still images. So I don't know a lot about the image transmission technology of 1964. But I'm assuming that there was a reason why they had to transmit it as video. Because it's also like they were using TV cameras. It has a TV camera mounted on it, but it's clear that they were looking for still images to come from it. So, considering that this is the first time I've actually run across the Ranger missions at all, I'm not sure what kind of documentation we have. I'm gonna do a quick search, because now I'm curious. It's like a couple hits. Archives of American Aerospace Engineering. Yeah, no. The only finding aid mention, so the only place where it's specifically mentioned, is in this collection. So we might have stuff, but it would take more than a quick search for me to find it. We do have like mission reports from various missions as well. I wasn't familiar with the Ranger missions before, so I don't know. Hi, Alexi. Oh, the aspect counter is a permanent fixture now. We have an additional counter for when we're reading the journal of the 14-year-old Confederate teen, because she says, "Oh," with an exclamation point so many times in the journal that we decided it needed a counter. Okay, this one is mimeographed and very hard to read, so let me see what... July 7th, 1965. The camera lenses peer out from the pumpkin-shaped container that holds the photographic equipment. In this latest photo of a lunar orbiter spacecraft model, launched from Cape Kennedy in mid-1966, the camera-carrying spacecraft will go into orbit around the moon and take sharp, close-up photos of the lunar surface. Scientists will use the photos to help select landing places for Project Apollo astronauts. 4 black paddles are solar panels, white arms extending out from the sides of the spacecraft are antennas. Funnel-shaped control rocket nozzle is visible at the top. Boeing is having lunar orbiters in Seattle for the National Aeronautics and Space Administration. Nope. It doesn't say having. But I don't know what it does say. But apparently Boeing was making them. But the Langley Research Center did the prototypes. I'll show you what the text looked like on the back. This is the text I was just reading. It is a very, very faint mimeograph. This is sort of like normal mimeograph from the one before. This is excellent mimeograph, easy to read. And then we have this one, which was the first photo in this folder that I will have to scan this and use image manipulation to bring to play with the contrast to get the text visible, because it is impossible to read. I know from taking a picture with my cell phone and doing some quick image manipulation that it will be possible to make the text legible. It's just not legible at the moment. Huge loss in quality when they transmitted recorded on video. Yeah, probably. Luke now identifies as a 14-year-old teenage girl. Oh dear. Yes, Boeing, the aircraft manufacturer. Yeah, future readers will. Yeah. You wanted to read the captions? Out of focus. Yeah. And that's sort of where I was as well. Wanted to glance in this folder. I don't know what's... I just know that the title of the folder says Eyewitness Accounts, and so I'm curious. Oh. I have a student assistant that does the prep work so that I'm usually encountering the materials at the same time as you all are. So I don't usually know a whole lot about them before we look at them. A note from my student assistant says, this folder has play-by-plays of the moon landing from various eyewitness accounts and James Dean's notes on the landing. I'm more interested in James Dean's notes on the landing. He is the person whose papers these are, and I want to see what his perspective was. So... okay. let's see. I'm going to start with this page. So these papers were mostly pulled together as Dean was helping Michael Collins with a book about the moon landing. Michael Collins was the third astronaut on Apollo 11. He remained in the lunar orbiter while Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin descended to the lunar surface. And we have Collins's papers here. So... Okay, let's see. April 13th, 1989. Please look over the attached and let me know if it's factually correct. I've enclosed a copy of each of my sources. Hope they were right. Please call me with any changes. Or an okay. Okay. Let's see. The first man on the moon commemorative. Stamp designed by Kahl, was issued September 9th, 1969. Let's see. Before the launch of Apollo 11, the astronauts, in cooperation with the United States Postal Service, took the die from which printing plates for the stamp were eventually made. I think that's probably in here. I think... Nope, those are the emblems. Now I'm curious as to whether any of these actually have the... There's gotta be. I just don't know where. Anyway, so they posed for the picture before the launch of Apollo 11. A moon letter carrying a die proof of the commemorative stamp along with them. The moon letter envelope was hand canceled. Oh, that! I did hear about that. I wonder if we have stuff related to that. I doubt we have the letter. I'm sure the Smithsonian does. So yeah, there was... They took a letter. It was an envelope, hand-canceled by the astronauts with a special postmark that read Moon Landing, USA. So they had, as though they were postal employees canceling a stamp, they had a letter with them that while they were on the moon, they hand-canceled the stamp, indicating that it had been canceled at Moon Landing, USA, July 20, 1969. Similar postmark was used later for the first day of, on the first day of issue envelopes submitted by the public to the U.S. Postal Service. So they do this whole thing with U.S. postage stamps. When they issue the stamp, one of the things that increases the value of a stamp is having it canceled on an envelope on the first day of issue, and it can even, if it's canceled at the location of issue on the first day of issue, that increases the value more. So they did this stunt of having the astronauts cancel one on the moon, and then they did a similar cancellation for the actual, like, they offer it as a service where you can request first day of cancellation, you pay money, and then you get an envelope that's canceled with the appropriate cancellation for the first day that the stamp was issued. Luke, I think he has talked about it. I don't know that I have spent a lot of time watching his interviews about it, and I haven't dug specifically looking for that in his papers. I know he was less famous, but also received a lot of attention because he was the loneliest man in the universe for a while, because he stayed in the lunar orbiter and went around the far side of the moon. And during the period of time that he was on the far side of the moon, he was the first human in recorded history to be completely cut off from the rest of the human race. He had no way of contacting another human at all, and couldn't even see the works of man beyond the ship he was in. So he had a different perspective, and people were interested in it because he talked about its effect on his perception of his place in the universe and mankind's place in the universe, etc. Because the profound, I don't want to say loneliness, but the profound feeling from being that isolated during that portion of the mission, all the attention goes to the Armstrong and Aldrin, who walked on the surface of the moon, and rightly so. But Collins had an equally groundbreaking and affecting experience at the same time, by being isolated from the rest of all of humanity multiple times, because he was orbiting the moon. So he went behind the moon multiple times over the course of the mission, and got to spend a lot of time just completely alone. Like, on the far side of the moon, he was not even within radio contact. He couldn't reach out on the radio and talk to Houston. He was completely cut off. And because Aldrin and Armstrong were on the Earth side of the moon, he was also out of contact with them. So I know he's talked about that, and it is a very interesting perspective. Yeah, I think a lot of people don't. I do know that a lot of, like, the Smithsonian documentaries or the NASA documentaries, the more recent stuff that came out, because we just recently passed the 50-year anniversaries of the moon landing and things like that. A lot of the more recent documentaries actually do include clips of him talking about the experience and cover the fact that he stayed in the orbiter while the other two went down. The lunar lander was only designed for 2 people, which was part of the problem on the Apollo 11, or the Apollo 13 mission. When they had a problem in the lunar orbiter and all 3 of them had to get in the lunar lander and figure out how to live. But yeah, it's definitely a detail that isn't the focus of a lot of the coverage, but it is quite interesting. I love this. After being returned to Earth and undergoing a 21-day decontamination period in the Lunar Receiving Laboratory in Houston, the die and moon letter were returned to the United States Postal Service. Following the printing and issuance of the stamp, the space-traveling moon letter was exhibited widely. Uh, can't tell what that says. Oh, philatelic material. Which is just meaning stamp related. Don't underestimate the space viruses. That's Luke. Yes, that's the one Tom Hanks was on, in the movie portrayal at least. The notes, like that recollection about the stamps is interesting. Let's see, eyewitness to Apollo. I wanna. Intro to art exhibit. I mean, there's so much good stuff and there's not enough time. I may have said that in various forms a few times. Okay, who's this one from? It is definitely longer. Oh, I think these are just actually typed versions of some of the... Okay. I'm still hoping to find... Because it references, like, his notes, but I think that all of the yellow pages in here are his notes on... Which is great, but also I don't have a ton of time left. So I'm going to look for more things. Oh my goodness, another... What? Hi, it's probably okay. Well, welcome, Raiders. It's good to see you. Shadows of Life, hello. Welcome in. Welcome to the adventure. Today we are heading... Or we're in space. At least my brain is. Yeah. We're looking at material from the art director, the first art director for NASA, and specifically material in the collection that is related to the Apollo program. I don't know what is in here, and we just discover it together. So this folder is on the Apollo-Soyuz test project. Unfortunately, I do not read Russian. Yeah, not that James Dean. We have to say not that James Dean regarding multiple James Deans in our context, because there was a dean of students in Virginia Tech's past who was also named James Dean. But was neither this James Dean nor the entertainer one. Well, I am amazed. It's a palindromic month. Who would have guessed Twitch would be the same forwards and backwards? It almost sounds dodgy. Be right, UK. Twitch isn't. I'm just gonna nod and say thank you for the resubscription. Okay, I'm gonna try and get this on screen. Oh, I don't really. Yeah, no, we're just gonna do this. I'm gonna pause it. I do not read Russian, but there's a caption on the back. 55 months says this is true. July 3rd, 1975. Johnson Space Center, Houston, Texas. ASTP USSR MCC plaque. A close-up view of a plaque which will be given to the Soviet Union flight controllers at the ASTP Mission Control Center in the USSR. It will be presented by the American ASTP personnel on duty at the Moscow Control Center. The plaque reads, "Presented to the Moscow Mission Control Center in gratitude for the hospitality and cooperation rendered during the carrying out of the Apollo-Soyuz test project, July 1975. The consulting group of the United States of America." The individual signatures of the members of the group follow. So Apollo-Soyuz, this is, this whole project was about figuring out how they could make the American space stuff dock with the Russian space stuff. Let's see, I'm looking for some art, design, illustration stuff that will help. Ooh, we have actual sketches in this folder. Which are fun. Because, you know, like, he was the director of the NASA art program, but he was also an artist. I will drink more water, yes. And so these are just like quick sketches of his where he was helping to plan the book, so he was coming up with like illustrations that would go in this book. This is for a logo? But this is the two different spacecraft approaching each other to dock, it looks like. And we just have reference material in here, which is interesting, but not what we really want to focus on. I have before, but I prefer looking for original stuff. The reference material is like magazine articles that exist in the world. Because this stuff isn't that old. Chart of Apollo lunar landing flight techniques and Dean illustrations. Lunar landing flight techniques. Okay. Direct, Earth orbit rendezvous, lunar orbit rendezvous. Okay, so we have the illustration as it was published. Shown here are 3 competitive modes for landing a man on the moon. The direct mode, which would fly directly from Earth to the moon, was early favored by NASA headquarters and the Space Task Group. Earth Orbit Rendezvous was first favored by the Marshall Space Flight Center, wherein 2 vehicles would rendezvous in Earth orbit and then fly to the moon. Langley Research Center first championed the Lunar Orbit Rendezvous mode, in which the spacecraft would go into lunar orbit and a small ferry vehicle would take the crew to the lunar surface and then back to the mothership in lunar orbit for return to Earth. Which I believe is what actually ended up being done. Yes. Which is why we have a lunar orbiter and a lunar lander. But, so we've got the illustration as published, and we have the sketches that led to the illustration. Which I think is really cool, coming from, like, the art director, and we've got sketches and finished product together in the folder. I think it's a fascinating little bit to have. That's all that's in this folder is the article and the initial sketches, but what is this? This just says handwritten notes. Just cool notes from Dean. Oh, there's always so much more. So I do plan at some time in the future to actually dive into the Michael Collins papers. We looked at them once the day he died, which it was the first year that I was doing the show. It was in April. I had something else entirely planned. And then it was announced that Michael Collins had died, and I scrapped the entire plan for the stream, pulled as many boxes of the Michael Collins collection off the shelf as I could, and truly dove into looking at materials with no idea what we were going to see, because I truly had no clue. We ended up looking at like metals and other things like that. And it was really cool, but I haven't gone back and actually spent time with the collection and sort of parsing it out and looking at the various things. And like I said earlier, I went looking for like diaries and journals, and there are some like reflections and personal writings of his in that collection, and I think those would be really interesting to see. I don't have a light box to light this from behind at the moment, but it's the transparency of the moon landing in color, which is really cool. We've got a couple of them. This one has a caption included with it. I just think, Luke, I just think it's really fun. And there have been occasional episodes, like streams where I didn't end up feeling that what we were looking at was terribly engaging or interesting. That has never really happened with the NASA stuff. And honestly, most episodes, there's something fascinating. We find something that's interesting, something to dig into. We looked at old issues of the Ladies' Home Journal around the time of the 100th anniversary of the 19th Amendment a couple of years back. And ended up running across a series of articles in there about that asserted some very questionable science on the characteristics of women's hair structure based on the geography that they were from and their race. And it was very, very interesting because it was like 19th century pseudoscience about hair texture in a women's magazine. And it was, we just ran across it and decided, yep, we're going to spend some time like reading about this and see what it says. And it was interesting. Okay, I know it's not well lit, but I'm going to read what the caption says. Manned Spacecraft Center, Houston, Texas, July 16, 1985. Apollo 11. So this, they released this with this caption in 1985, but it's a picture of the 1969. So lunar module pilot Edwin E. Aldrin left, and spacecraft commander Neil Armstrong Wright practice lunar surface activities at the main Manned Spacecraft Center, Houston. So yes, this is not in space. This, come on, I've got to have, that's so much better. This is them practicing at a mock-up on Earth. Aldrin is using a scoop to collect samples of the surface while Armstrong takes pictures. The lunar module is in the background. The astronauts are in spacesuits. Breathing oxygen, pressurization, and temperature control are provided by backpacks. Apollo 11, scheduled for launch July 16, is the first U.S. space mission designed to land 2 astronauts on the moon and return them safely to Earth. It's interesting that this caption says for release July 16, 1985. But clearly this caption is from the 60s. The text is clearly from the 60s. But it says 85 there. I was thinking like reissue, but now I'm thinking typo. But I haven't run across a typo like that before. We have another one. Yeah, no, this one says 69. You're thinking time travel? You could be right. This one's even darker. Except for the text, which is much lighter. Yeah, no, this is the same. It's the same picture, same caption. It's from... Oh, no, I know what it is. Okay, so this photo is from April 23rd, 1969. And it's really dark. It's really hard to see. The difference, it's the same photo, but this is a 1985 re-release where they went back to the original film and redeveloped it with new photographic technology because they could produce a better image, which we've run across that a couple times. So the original print is really dark. It's very hard to see. I would have to get a light box in here, and I don't have one near me. This reprint from 1985 was issued with the same caption, but is much, much easier to see. Nice. It's probably okay. You're probably right. People traveled back in time to fake the moon landing. Clearly, Geek Filter. That's why I have actual artifacts here of melted window panels from the lunar lander, or lunar orbital module. Yeah, no, this is really... I enjoy working with the NASA stuff. I love that we have the NASA stuff. Some of it is weird. I was very disappointed with one of the collections, mostly because I got excited because the description rightly mentioned that there was content about the personal jetpack that the guy helped work on. Sadly, there were almost no pictures. And so it was very sad that the documentation and the stuff actually in the collection was less exciting than one would think personal jetpack development would be. It was, yes, it was very much like clickbait. That said, like, there are some really fantastic, and I think there's like a whole documentary about the development of the jetpack now. But like other places had more material than we did. I can't remember which collection that is off the top of my head right now. We also had a very esoteric NASA trivia board game in one episode, and it was not questions that anyone really could ever be expected to be able to answer. They were very detailed. There's a reason it never actually got published. I don't know. It's in the... There's a playlist on YouTube of Non-Trivial Pursuit, the game of NASA. Yeah. There's a playlist on YouTube with all of the various episodes that have NASA in them. I can't remember which collection that is right now. Yeah, there, that collection. I do have to start closing things down for the stream because sadly, I have to get packed up and head home from work. But see, now I'm poking through, I think it might have been the Otis Jerome Parker papers. Yes, he worked on jet shoes. And the collection is mostly about that. There just aren't very many pictures. And there's no video clips of his work on jet shoes, which was disappointing. But still, I didn't know they had tried to make jet shoes. Okay, let's see. Jet shoes sounds like something from the late 90s that kids would be in love with for 3 minutes and then they would disappear, probably. Next week is number 10 in the series of sci-fi stories that in 1940 sci-fi critic Sam Moskowitz called classics, even though they were only 6 years old. So we'll be reading The Mole Pirate, the Mole Pirate by Murray Leinster. And yes, credits. Look, it me. And then my student assistant Jules, who has selected the recent topics. Thank you to my mods, Hannah, Lord Portico, and Elixir for your help and presence. Thank you Key Squared and Be Right UK, and Luke XY for subscriptions. I missed the thank you for the Prime subscription, Luke. And thank you, Anonymous, for gifting a sub earlier. Shadows of Life, thank you for the bit. And Newbie Muffin, and It's Probably Okay, thank you for the raids. And Med Out and Raven Blackheart for the follows. I really do appreciate it. And we've been listening to Lo-Fi Girl in the background here. So yeah, next week is The Mole Pirate, and then I am out on the 6th because I have a conference that's happening across the hall that I have to talk at. And then we'll be back on the 13th then with the kitchen equipment collection that has some interesting and unusual kitchen equipment stuff in it. The next NASA one, though, that I have planned is September 3rd. And we'll be looking at the NASA papers of Robert Gilruth. So let me see who is on. And, oh, geez. We got attacked by advertisements. I'm going to look and see who we're going to raid. Oh, I have, the episodes are planned about 5 weeks in advance so that I can get the various details together. I tried in the beginning. I did them like week by week. I had to push and plan 5 weeks ahead to be able to keep up with it. Let's see. We could do... I think today is going to be paleontologizing. Because Dinosaur Dig in Utah sounds like a great stream to attend. So, yeah. Join me and we'll pop on over to join Danny for some dinosaur archaeology. Oh, yeah, paleontologizing is great. If anybody is watching on the library's channel, VTUL Studios, unfortunately, that channel is not able to raid paleontologizing, so you all will be heading over to the Monterey Bay Aquarium. Just because of whatever settings he's got for raids, the library's channel is not able to raid him. But yeah, I encourage you to pop on over there, and it's usually a good time. Thank you all so much for joining me, and I shouldn't try and type and talk at the same time. Thanks for joining me. I hope that I will see all of you again soon. Until I do, keep exploring history, everybody.